Namaste everyone, welcome to my channel. It's 104 days before prelims. So I realized today that the key to actually making it through the exam is not some sort of trick or shortcut or anything, but to work hard and to make sure that we're able to revise it as easily as we can. So currently we might be referring to different books for different topics and everything, but I felt that on the last day of the exam it would not be wise to pick up different books for revision. So I basically wanted to simplify my own revision. I actually decided to continue with my Study With Me series that I had been doing before. And in this series, Study With Me 2.0, if you will, I am not just going to post, videos about random topics, but it's going to be a very organized, full syllabus revision series. So basically, I'm an Unacademy subscriber and I follow Sudarshan Gurjar sir for geography and environment and mapping and all of that. And I feel that his classes are so good that once you kind of do it, all you need to do is a very quick revision before the exam. But the thing is, because he invests a lot of time in making sure that things are there in our minds itself on the day of the class, it becomes very difficult to use the same lecture videos for revision as well. So I decided to compile all of his lectures in a very short or in few short videos basically. So I started with physical geography and today I'm posting the first video of that series. In this video, I have covered the first 4 lectures of physical geography course by Sudarshan sir. In these first 4 lectures, basically, he had us cover the basics, the shape of the earth and everything, and latitudes and longitudes. So I have covered all of those, 8 hours worth of lectures into some 23-24 minutes. So it's still, a little bit longer than I would have liked. So when you are watching it, you might even like to watch it at 1.5 or 1.75 or even 2x speed, so that it will be a very quick revision for you. Disclaimer: this is not a teaching video. Of course, if you have certain doubts about time zones and everything, you might also learn from it, but it is mainly intended for revision. So first you should have covered these topics, and then you can watch this video. I have not tried to explain. Yes, certain things that it came out as an explanation, but I'm not trying to teach anyone. All I'm doing is compiling all the content that he's taught us in a very short video so that we can revise it quickly. So even if you're not learned from Sudarshan sir, but you have covered these topics and you want a quick revision, you can still use it. So as I said earlier, this is going to be a very quick revision video of Sudarshan sir's physical geography batch. I attended this batch on Unacademy and this is the revision video of the first 4 classes. So let's get on to it. Firstly, we need to know some basics. So these are the continents of the earth. So let's just mark them very quickly. Right here is Asia. This is Africa. Here it is Europe. This is North America. This is South America. This is Antarctica. This is Australia. This region is also called as Oceania by certain people because there are certain islands in this area right here which are part of the same area. So basically to kind of compile all of them into one continent, we call it Oceania because it's not actually the part of mainland Australia. In news, it's also been said that this part, New Zealand, is part of a continent called Zealandia, which is submerged in the ocean right now. So it's not actually there, but it was there in the news recently, so we just need to know. Another thing that we need to know about these continents is their size, the increasing order and the decreasing order of their size. So area-wise, if we look at it, the biggest continent is Asia. Then is second biggest is Africa. Then North America. Then South America. Then Antarctica, and then Europe, and then it is Australia. We need to remember that Antarctica is bigger than Europe. Then the next thing that we mark here is decreasing order of their population size, basically. So as per population, largest is of course in Asia, second is Africa, third is Europe, fourth is North America, fifth is South America, then comes Australia, and then last of course Antarctica. Moving on, after that we need to remember all the oceans, important oceans that we have. So this M-shaped ocean right here is the Indian Ocean. This part is basically the Pacific Ocean. Right here, the S-shaped ocean is the Atlantic Ocean. Here towards the North Pole is the Arctic Ocean. And this ocean right here is called the Southern Ocean or the Antarctic Ocean. Earlier, it was not considered to be a different ocean, and it was part of the Pacific or Atlantic or Indian Ocean itself. But now, they consider it as a different ocean. So it is, South Ocean or Antarctic Ocean. Moving on, the next concept is that of an island. Island is a landmass surrounded by water body on all of its sides. So right here is the island. Next is that of a peninsula. Peninsula is basically a landmass which is surrounded by water body from three sides. So 1, 2, and 3 right here. So this is a peninsula. There is a very fine difference between peninsula and a cape. A cape is basically an extended part or a tip of the peninsula from where if you stand, you can see the ocean from all three sides. So right here, right here, right here. It's basically a tip or a point. After that, we move to the seas. Next, we come to seas. In seas, basically, we use the names of different seas to understand which local area that we are trying to talk about. So when we say that I'm talking about Atlantic Ocean, then it could be anywhere, any part of this area. But when I say that I'm talking about North Sea, then I exactly know that I'm talking about this particular area. Or when I say Indian Ocean, it could be all of this. But when I say Arabian Sea, I know that it shares border with India. So that's exactly how we actually mark. While we are doing sea, we also need to understand bays and gulfs and bights. So basically, bays are so right here, if you see that this is Bay of Bengal, or this is the Gulf of Mexico, or Hudson Bay. So why are these called bays? Bays are because they are basically an enclosed water body which is also part of the ocean. So it has a mouth which opens up in an ocean. There's very minor difference in bays. The mouth is a little wider, whereas in gulfs the mouth is a little smaller. So that's what the difference between bays and gulf is. And as bay is wider, if it is even more wider, then it is called a bight. So that's the difference. Bight is BIGHT, bays and gulf. So these are the three things that we need to remember.
Moving on, strait is basically a water body which separates two different land masses. So, this is the example of Strait of Hormuz. Then comes isthmus. Isthmus is basically exactly opposite of strait, where it's basically a land mass which separates two water bodies. So these are the basic concepts. Now we move to the structure of the Earth. So if we measure the diameter of Earth from the equator, it is this much, 12,756 kilometers. And when we measure the diameter of the Earth from the poles, it is 12,714 kilometers, which is a little less than the equatorial diameter, which is how we can actually make out that Earth is not exactly spherical. Its shape is called geoid or oblate spheroid, and the study of shape of Earth is called geodesy. This is the circumference. Polar circumference is 40,008 kilometers, and the equatorial circumference is a little bit more, which is 40,075 kilometers. So let's understand the latitudes and longitudes. Latitudes are basically the angles from the center of the Earth. When we mark the angles, and on different angles when we form parallel lines all across the Earth, those are the imaginary lines that are called latitudinal lines. And when you mark again from the center of the Earth horizontally, when you mark lines like this, then these lines will be formed in this manner, and they are basically the longitudinal lines. So this bit is not actually important for the UPSC exam. We only need to understand the lines bit, but since sir taught, I just thought that quick revision would be good. So these are the longitudinal lines and these are the latitudinal lines. Latitudinal lines are generally parallel to each other, whereas longitudinal lines all intersect at the poles. These are some of the important latitudinal lines. First one is the equator, which is at 0 degrees. Second is at Tropic of Cancer, which is 23.5. At 66.5 is Arctic Circle, and at 23.5 south is Tropic of Capricorn, and at 66.5 is Antarctic Circle. Basically, these lines, the equatorial line divides the Earth into two hemispheres. The top hemisphere is the north hemisphere, and the bottom hemisphere is the southern hemisphere. There is a peculiar importance of these latitudes. Let's first understand how many latitudes are basically there. There are total, so when we count from degrees, 0 to 90 and then 0 to 90 here. So basically there are 101 latitudes in total, because the maximum length, the maximum place that a latitude, the maximum value that a latitude can have is 90 degrees south or 90 degrees north. And so counting them, and the 0 degree latitude is 181, and the number of latitudinal lines can be 179, because you can't draw a line on the poles, so that's why there are 179 latitudinal lines. And after that, we need to remember that the average distance between two latitudinal line is 111 kilometers. So that's something that's important to know. The longest latitudinal line is the equatorial line, as we know. Latitudinal lines are important to determine seasons. I will come back to that in a bit. Moving on to the longitudinal lines, they intersect, as I said earlier. There are in total 360 longitudinal lines, and the maximum distance between two longitudinal lines is found, of course, at the equator, because as it goes towards the poles, it kind of, the distance keeps reducing, and finally they get intersected at the 90 degree. So at the equator, the distance is 111.3 kilometers between two longitudinal lines. So that's the distance. The longitudinal lines are basically used to determine the time and date. So the first thing that we need to know is one of the most important longitudinal line is the prime meridian. It basically goes from UK. Basically, this was chosen as prime meridian because it was a colonial time, and Britishers wanted to just dominate. So that's why it goes from here. So this is basically prime meridian is basically 0 degree latitude, and everything towards the east of it is basically whatever east, and everything towards the west is the west. So that's why India falls in the east of it. And from here, when it goes, basically this is the Central Standard Time, or GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. So to determine the time, or the line that goes from the Greenwich Mean Time right here will have the main central time. Accordingly, when we move towards east from the Greenwich Mean Time, basically we kind of add 1 hour for every 15 degrees. So 1 degree is equal to 4 minutes. So accordingly, which longitude we are at, we can basically determine the time, and that's exactly how we determine the time. So when we move towards east, we need to add hours, and when we move towards west, we need to subtract hours in terms of time. But when we subtract hours in terms of time, we gain that much time in our life. So that's something that we need to remember. Similarly, when we exactly towards the 360 degrees, opposite towards the Greenwich prime meridian line is the international date line. Now this line is not straight, of course, as we know, because it had to accommodate different islands, from having different dates. So basically, to accommodate all of that, it's kind of twisted here and there. And international date line is used to determine the dates. How we determine the date is when we go from west to east of the international date line. So when you say west to east of international date line, west of the international date line is Japan, and east of international date line is US. So exactly opposite to prime meridian line. So when we go from west to east of international date line, we basically gain a day because we need to subtract a date. So if there is 4th Jan here, when we move from here to here, this place is going to have 3rd Jan, and we gain a day because we got a chance to live one more day. Whereas when we move from west to east of international date line, we lose a day because we need to add a date. So that's exactly how it works. Then we move to Indian Standard Time. India's longitudinal extent is from 68.7 degrees east to 97.25 degrees east. But we needed to have one standard time, so we have chosen this 82.3 degrees east to be our standard time, which is some 5.5 hours more than the Greenwich Mean Time. And there was also a proposal that, since the northeast region, they kind of have earlier sunrise because it's in the eastmost part. And it's basically, there's a difference of 2 hours because this extent is 30 degrees worth of extent, and 15 degrees is 1 hour. So 2 hours late sun rises in the west in Gujarat than in the east. So because in order to increase their efficiency, there was a proposal that there should be an extra time zone in India, and that was actually going to go from this area, from the Chicken Neck corridor, the Siliguri corridor basically, and this was the 89.52 was the latitude, the longitude that we were looking at, and this time would have been known as Chai Bagan time, because in Assam tea is grown, and so Chai Bagan. So that was proposed, but it has not been accepted as yet. This would not have been the India would not have been the only country. As we all know, there are many time zones and in different countries. France has the maximum number of time zones, which is at 12. Then comes this on the second rank is Russia and US with 11 time zones, and then there's Antarctica. So I don't think we need to remember all of that. We just need to know that France has the maximum number of time zones because it has many more colonies across the world. Now we move on to the importance of the latitudes. The Earth rotates around its axis from west to east, which is why the sun rises for us from east to west. As we know, it takes 24 hours to complete one rotation around its axis. The sun, so as we see, if we can see this line right here, this part is illuminated because the sun would be here and the sun rays would be coming in this manner. So this particular line, which would form like an entire circle around the planet, this circle is called circle of illumination. The other thing that we need to know is about the revolution of Earth around the sun. So revolution of Earth around the sun takes 365 days, 5 hours and 48 minutes. But for ease of calculation, we say that it revolves around the sun in 365 days, which is 1 year. And then the 5 hours and 48 minutes is then converted into 6 hours, and again for convenience bit. And so 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 4 times it becomes 24 hours. So there's an extra day every 4th year, which is why we have leap years. So that's something that we need to remember. This is the diagram of Earth's revolution around the sun. So as we know that Earth is tilted on its axis by 23.5 degrees, and so that makes it important because that's how we have seasons. So when the Earth is right here at this place, the sun falls directly on Tropic of Cancer, making it summers in the North Hemisphere and winters in the South Hemisphere. And this date when it is right here is called summer solstice, and it falls on June 21st or so. And right here on this particular day in the Northern Hemisphere, everywhere it is the longest day and the shortest night, and it is exactly the opposite in the Southern Hemisphere. When after that the sun moves right here, because here also the revolution is counterclockwise. So when it reaches right here to September 22nd or 23rd, it becomes there is equal day and equal night everywhere on the Earth, because the sunlight falls directly on the equator, and it is autumn season in the Northern Hemisphere. After that, the sun moves to by the time of December 22nd, 23rd, the Earth moves right here, and at this time the sun rays directly fall on Tropic of Capricorn, and at this time there is summer in the Southern Hemisphere, but there's winter in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is also called winter solstice, which means that the days in the Southern Hemisphere are the longer, they have the longest day on this particular day on 21st or 22nd December, whereas we have the shortest day in the Northern Hemisphere. And then we move to the equinox again on March 21st. This time we have spring in the Northern Hemisphere, whereas autumn in the Southern Hemisphere. And at this particular time, from this particular date, March 21st, the sun again starts to move towards the North Hemisphere, so that by this particular date it reaches the Northern Hemisphere base or the Tropic of Cancer. Sun passes twice at least from between all these points between the tropics, which is why it is called a tropical zone. Tropic means change directions from there. So basically the sun, this is the highest point after which the sun changes its direction. That is why it is called Tropic of Cancer. and between these 2 points it falls directly twice a year, but on the tropic itself it directly falls only once a year. So that's there. Above this area, the sunlight does not fall directly, and it's always slanted, which is why it is called a temperate zone. And beyond this point, which is 66.5 degrees, the sunlight does not reach properly. So basically it will not have a regular everyday day and night kind of a phenomena, which is why it is called a frigid zone or a polar zone. Right here if we see, so this is the frigid zone. Another concept that we needed to know is of perihelion and ephelion. Perihelion is when the sun is closest to the earth, whereas on ephelion the sun is farthest from the earth. At this time though, the sun is in the southern hemisphere, so we have winters in the northern hemisphere, but still we are the closest to sun at this particular time. So this is perihelion, which is on 3rd Jan, and ephelion is on 3rd July. Tropical zone is where the temperatures are high almost all the time. There is no winter in the equatorial area. Since there is no winter, if we see that there is more evaporation, which means there's rain every single day. Because it's raining every single day, the vegetation is evergreen forests, and since there is evergreen forests, there are tall trees, because there's a competition for sunlight. And because of that, the trees are quite tall, the forests are quite dense, but the roots of the trees are not that deep, because water is available easily over here. Since there are so many trees, the animal types that are very common in this region are reptiles, because there is no space for speedy running or something. So crawling animals are very popular in this area. Since there is very high humidity, the microorganisms and bacteria can multiply very quickly, which is why these are the areas right here where there are a lot of illnesses, and so the death rate is high. Birth rate is also high to compensate for the death rate. Also the fact that since the temperatures are high, the efficiency is quite low, which is why all the underdeveloped nations are in this zone, whereas the developed nations are all in the temperate zones right here if you see, because the temperatures are a little low, the humidity is less, and which is why the efficiency is quite good. Last thing that I think I missed out on was about the poles. So on equinox, there is an the day and the night are exactly of equal length everywhere. What we need to remember is that after the equinox, when there is the summer season in the northern hemisphere, the North Pole has day for the 6 whole months, after which it again reaches an equinox. And when again it is on the equinox, it basically has an equal length of day and night, and after that it continues to stay in the night time till again the next equinox. So at that time the South Pole will have day for 6 months.
That's my video for today, guys. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please leave a comment below and click on the thumbs up button, because it really encourages me. Let me know if you want me to make more of the feel good videos where how to wake up early, or how to study, or what kind of foods to eat and stuff like that. If you really want me to do all of that, because I've experimented a lot here and there, let me know about that. I'll try and make those videos too, but my main focus is going to be making the revision material for 2-3 days before the exam, because at that time we don't want to go hunting for books. So I think this is going to be a very nice compilation that we can all use at a later stage. And please let me know what you think about this. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe.